All right, hey guys, welcome back to another video. Been a minute since I've posted a video, but I didn't have much to say, even though there's been a lot of game announcements, game trailers and stuff like that. There's been a lot of things. I didn't really want to talk about anything in particular. However, today I really want to talk about Granblue Fantasy Versus because recently we got an emergency patch that was pretty huge for Beatrix, the new character in Granblue. Now, I really wanted to talk about my wish list overall for the upcoming big patch, the thing that everybody has been waiting for basically, because I think the emergency patch that they made for Beatrix was actually pretty inspiring, because when it comes to Beatrix, she was definitely an overtuned character. I think a lot of people looked at it from the angle of, oh, she's not even the strongest character, why is she getting nerfed? I think it was just a matter of the character was overtuned, and maybe, you know, the developers are pretty strange when it comes to their logic. If you try to make sense of it, it's not going to go really well. I mean, if I have to guess, right, based on how they even approach something like the simple input change, for example, which was not a bad idea at all. To me, it's the best change that they've made, but the way they talked about it, if we have to approach it with the same logic, my guess is they probably did that for Beatrix, but not for Siegfried or Nier yet, just because they really want to take all of the problems all at the same time. That's my guess, but like I said, there's no point really in making any sense of the logic at the moment, because they are a little bit strange, I would say. I like the way they think, but I think they're just a little bit strange sometimes. Regardless, so when it comes to the Beatrix patch, if I think about something that they've done right about it, is that they have pretty much left the game plan totally intact. The things that make her strong completely left intact, and I think that's great, but the extra things are gone, so now Beatrix has to actually think in order to set up her game plan. To me, that's the best change that they could have done to her. They've done a good job when it comes to that. I think the character is still incredibly strong, but I think it's actually possible to play around her. Now I know there's a lot of people who played Beatrix and thought she was really fun and everything, but there are also a lot of people who were like, she's a scrub killer. She's a scrub killer, right? Regardless, like I said, I want to talk about my wish list for the upcoming patch, and for that reason I really want to tackle two specific things, of course, which are system mechanics and also character balance. Now, I am no tournament player. I am definitely not the best player either online, so I don't really have, you know, the arrogance to pretend that what I'm saying is definitely what the game needs, but it's just my opinion, and the things that I'm going to talk about are mostly on a very, you know, general aspect, so not really in details, because I'm sure when it comes to character balance and things like that, and even some of the mechanics, I'm sure that people will have way more things to say, especially the people who are better than me. So when it comes to system mechanics, because that's the first thing we're going to talk about, I think they are actually playing a pretty major role in the balance of this game, more than we actually think, because things like dash light, things like ultimate skills, and even brave counter play a major role in a lot of interactions mid-match, right? During a single round, you can see so many of these mechanics being used. I've played plenty of matches where I would just end all my match with basically 0 bravery points, not because they got taken out, but because I used all of them. There's also the fact that dash light constitutes a major aspect of your character's offense these days, and then finally you have ultimate skills that lead to a lot of stupid shit. I think these mechanics are not bad, and in a lot of ways I like them. I like all of these mechanics. I think they're very fun. I think Granblue overall was a game that always needed a little bit of flair and a little bit of spice to it, and I think all these mechanics add that spice. However, it's too much. They are very overtuned, and a big consequence to all these mechanics too is that they lead the game to way too much damage in a lot of cases. Granblue is a game that sure had some damage to it before then, but even now I think it's a little bit too much, the damage that we get, and especially how easy access the damage is. That's the part that I really like the least about the game right now. So because of that, I want to start talking about Dashlight first. I think this mechanic overall, ever since the second beta of the game, ever since they made all the big changes from the first beta, Dashlight has become an overly strong mechanic. At the moment, Dashlight is probably the most generic option, or the most generic mechanic in the entire game. It does the same for every character basically, but it also has too many advantages as a generic light button, which in my opinion needs to change. For the nerfs that I want for Dashlight, I think Dashlight needs to just be reverted to how it was in beta 1. You know, the Kusoge beta, the one that everybody hated. Dashlight in that beta was also pretty good. It was actually still plus and block the same way it was. However, it was much shorter in terms of range. Also didn't convert into close M, so it didn't lead to high damage. And basically it would give every character basically a generic combo. So Dashlight, Firelight, Special. Being an advancing normal by default will always be good. Being plus and block will always be good, but it doesn't need to lead to the damage that it does right now, and it doesn't need to have the range that it has at the moment. So that's already something that I want to see change when it comes to system mechanics. The other system mechanic that I want to talk about is ultimate skills. Now for ultimate skills, I know some people complain about the refund. I know people really dislike YOLO ultimate skill from full screen. I do too. I would say this though, when it comes to the refund. The refund, I feel kind of divided on it, because I like it. I think it makes some characters really fun to play. It makes some tools really fun to use too. Just to throw away 50% meter, just why not, right? I like the refund for that. But at the same time, I end up looking at things like the 150% meter combos that people do, and that I can do too with Beelzebub, for example. And those combos, they do like 10,000 to like 12,000 damage. So I'm a little bit divided on the refund for the ultimate skills, but I would also not be too attached to it. I mean, if they remove it, I can definitely understand why. I would think it's kind of a shame, but I would 100% understand why they would do that. So good enough for ultimate skills, in my opinion, would probably be about damage scaling overall. You know, the table of damage scaling that we have for the game, maybe. Okay, it always makes damage scaling jump by 3 stages basically, or maybe 2 stages at least, right? So I think it would be a pretty fair change to ultimate skills overall, because right now they're a bit too ridiculous. They do a whole lot of damage for options that are 50% that also refund. Finally, let's talk about Brave Counter, another mechanic that has been pretty controversial in this game. I think Brave Counter overall, because of the resources that it's using, I think it deserves to be kind of good. But I also think that it is a little bit too strong at the moment. Brave Counter, in my opinion, when it comes to nerfs, should probably do no hard knockdown anymore, and probably should have a slowdown effect when being spot dodged, similar to how it works for Raging Strike. I think that would be pretty cool, because now it guarantees a bigger punish on a Brave Counter. In my opinion, that would be really nice. I think the mechanic can still be plus and block. I don't mind, because like I said, the resource that it uses is limited and has a pretty big consequence. So I don't mind it being plus and block, but the 2 others I think should go away. All right, so just one last mechanic that I'd like to talk about, honestly, is throw. I think throw right now, I don't think it's necessary to make it so people just mash out of throw. I mean, they can keep the counter throws, because they're kind of nice too, I guess, for people who really want to make the strike throw valuable. But I think the part where you just mash any buttons to get out of throw is kind of stupid. All right, finally, we can talk about characters. I think character balance is a pretty big thing, but like I said, I think there's already a pretty big change if you just change system mechanics. However, there's still things that I don't like when it comes to characters. Now, I think characters, like I said, should be allowed to be good. They should be allowed to have good things. They should be allowed to be fun to play. but they should not be insanely overpowered in the way some characters are right now. Again, I think the Beatrix patch did a great job, and I wish to see more things like that for most of the characters in general. So I'm not going to go too much into details once again, but I will just talk about specific characters and specific examples that I want to mention. So for example, let's start with Nier, you know, probably the face of what a broken character is in Granblue right now. So Nier, in my opinion, I think I'm mostly fine with everything that she has, you know. After all this time, after all these months, I feel like I'm mostly fine with all the things that she has. I don't mind her too much. Well, I do mind her a lot, specifically because of one thing, and that's the puppet recovery. Right now, I believe the puppet recovery is like 4 seconds, which is half of what the cooldown of an EX fireball is right now. For a character that bypasses the cooldown system, I think it's a little bit insane. So a lot of times right now, what happens is when you fight Nier, if you hit the puppet, not only you have to challenge the puppet, which is not easy, but if you hit it, what happens? You run at Nier. There's a lot of things that can happen. If you do dash light and she blocks, and then you start to do like a little block string, she brave counters, the puppet is already back. If you do dash light at her, maybe she hits you with a button, like maybe her crouching M or sweep, goes into raging strike, the puppet is already back, because it takes a very short time, right? So those are the interactions that happen a lot with Nier. So a good nerf would probably be to make it 10 seconds, similar to an EXDP cooldown. Now when you take brave counter in consideration, if Nier has a 10 seconds cooldown on the puppet, what will happen is that the puppet will basically have 30 seconds of inactivity. So it would be nice to allow Nier at least to bring back the puppet simply by pressing 5U, for example. Like she's just in neutral, maybe from full screen, just presses 5U. That's kind of how I see it for Nier. For characters, say like Lancelot, that's another character that I think is pretty strong. But Lancelot, like I said, I think every character is allowed to be good. And for Lancelot, he's a long time character. He's been there for, you know, forever. He's been there since the start of old Granblue 2, and he was also really strong at the start of old Granblue. But here's the thing. I feel like Lancelot is a character that needs to be fluid. He needs to have like a pretty solid game plan. He needs to play well, right? But I think the developers have been too afraid to make one change to Lancelot, which they should have ever since the start of the game. I think Lancelot health needs to be brought down to 14,000 at least, alongside with the fact that his blade impulse is way too safe at the moment. I think it should be harder to make safe, right? It should be harder to space out, because right now he just does it from mid-screen and he's safe for some reason. Right? I don't really understand that part. Regardless, I think these are changes, for example, for top tiers that would be good. For a character like Siegfried, honestly, there's not really much for me to say. I just think that the character is insanely boring, and if he gets nerfed, he's going to be even more boring, and you'll probably see a lot of people dropping the character because he really has nothing going on for himself. I just think the fireball is too overtuned, and probably his you know, projectile invul super kind of crazy. So outside of these two things, I think Siegfried and his big damage, I guess, outside of those, I think Siegfried is kind of bland and probably needs a rework overall. Like, they need to change the way mannequins work. They need to change how his install super work. Speaking of which, I think install supers overall need to probably change, and to some of them at least, like maybe fairies, maybe Siegfrieds, maybe even Seox. And in some ways, I guess some people will see that as buffs, and I would agree. But again, I don't disagree with characters having good things. I just think that as long as they're changed properly, it would be fine. So Siegfried, in my opinion, should just be reworked overall. Honestly, I think they were just completely drunk when they made Nier and Siegfried, honestly. I mean, these characters are just busted for no reason at all. Now, finally, the last thing I want to talk about that is pretty excessive in my opinion for some characters is the excessive meter gain on some of them. For example, Lancelot has a really excessive meter gain on his Rekka. I think that's crazy. But outside of that, those are the examples I want to talk about when it comes to nerfs. Things like that should definitely change. I think some characters are good, but they're allowed to be too good because they have things that go too far, right? So I don't really have much to say when it comes to that. When it comes to buffs, I'll just talk about one character that I play and that I like, which is Vayne. Of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased. I could talk about Beelzebub too, but I don't really have much to say about Beelzebub. I think he's mostly fine. I don't really think there's anything that he's struggling with, like, oh my god, this character just doesn't work. I mean, I think a lot of characters are in that similar position actually, and the only reason why they don't perform too well is because they are outclassed by other characters. It's not that they are necessarily bad. In fact, they play the game in a very healthy way while other characters don't, and that's mainly the problem of the balance of the game. So when it comes to a character like Vayne, in my opinion, I think he's definitely lacking. There are other characters like him in my opinion too, like Zoe, I think is another character that's lacking. But for Vayne, some changes that I would like to see are mostly about energy destruction. I think his energy destruction on counter hit, especially the EX energy destruction, should probably launch the opponent higher but also closer to Vayne. It launches them way too far and way too low for Vayne to do any type of follow-up. The only time you can probably follow up is when you are in the corner, which will most likely not happen. You're never going to spend EX energy destruction from the corner, because you're mostly going to do medium energy destruction from there. So that's kind of the problem that Vayne has right now, is that a lot of his options with energy destructions are just not that great. The other change I would like to see is to ultimate energy destruction, which I think needs to have armor. And it doesn't even have to be a frame 1 armor. It can be like frame 2 or whatever. So lastly, I want to talk about Vayne's shield as well, because that's the core part of his game plan. And like I said, I think characters need to have a good and solid game plan. But these changes mostly depend on how they change Dashlight, in my opinion. If Dashlight is changed, I think they don't need to change shield at all, and I think it's fine. However, if Dashlight remains as strong as it is, or if it's not weak enough, I think they need to change Vayne's EX shield, like the heavy shield. What they can do is they should probably move with him at the same time. That's the one change I would like them to do when it comes to this shield. Anyways, so that's pretty much it for the video. I'm sure a lot of people will have other things to say. I just wanted to mention the specific mechanics that I really have a problem with and that I don't like, because they changed the game in a way that I think is a little bit stupid. Character balance, I'm also sure a lot of people will have a lot of things to say about. To me, I think most characters in this game are fine. I just think that some of them are super power crept because of the top tiers, and if they nerf the top tiers, most of the game will be fine. Instead of, you know, because I've read a lot of crazy things when Beatrix was out and when they announced the nerfs. A lot of people were like, just buff the characters that are not at the level, just buff the characters. That's not the game that we're trying to play right now. Those are my thoughts on the changes. There's a lot of other things I would like to talk about that have nothing to do with, you know, the gameplay of the game, but more like the experience of the overall game. But I'll keep that in another video. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.